Okay. Sounds kind of be separate.
Mike's online.
Alright, so that was amazing and one of my favorite nights of the year. Obviously we have great students, great athletes, great people, right? Just all around great people. Next up is Mr. Davis, doing a Hanover research study on SEL.
All right, awesome, well good evening. So tonight, I'm gonna walk you through the results of a survey that we administered back in late September and early October. So this survey was developed by Hanover Research, which is a company the district contracts with for essentially policy briefs, and they frequently send us opportunities such as this, and we decided to take advantage of it for a couple of key reasons. So first, we've been using social emotional skills and competencies in our instruction and in our culture building as a district for a number of years. But we haven't done a district-wide survey about SEL or the perceptions of parents, students, and staff related to SEL for quite some time. So we wanted to establish a baseline of those perceptions to identify our areas of growth, areas of strength among the different stakeholder groups across the district. The district also received an increased amount of Title IV funding from the federal government this year, and as a result of that, we have to go through a process of completing a needs assessment. So this survey will also help fulfill the requirements of that needs assessment. And we chose to work with Hanover due to the district's longstanding partnership, and the availability of this survey was very fortuitous. Dr. Wilson-Turner and I got an email about it one day, and we said, well, this checks a lot of boxes for us, and comes at no additional cost to the district as well. So we had great participation in this survey, especially from parents. So when you look at the percentages, they seem relatively small, but the raw numbers are pretty large. So we had over 1,160 participants, 600 of which were parents, about 3% of the parents in the district. 20% of staff in the district participated, about over 300 staff, and then 250 students in grades 6 through 12. So the questions in the survey were considered appropriate for students in grades 6 through 12 and not necessarily aligned with students in grades K through 5, so we decided to only give the survey to the upper half of the grade band. So we administered the survey starting on September 23rd and wrapped it up on October 4th. So since that time, we've been analyzing the data from the survey, and we got the raw data, which was a spreadsheet with literally thousands of cells of information, as well as a summary report from Hanover. So today I'm going to combine aspects of my own analysis of the data as well as Hanover's analysis of the data to think about, again, the areas of growth and strength for the district. So first, just a recap of the long-term benefits of effective implementation of social-emotional learning. There's data and studies to show that SEL instruction in schools leads to improved social, emotional, and academic outcomes for kids, as well as improved mental health literacy, coping skills, response to adversity, and overall school climate. So we know from decades of research at this point that schools that have effective implementations of social-emotional learning and students who acquire social-emotional skills and competencies are going to have better life outcomes as a result. We also focus at Shen on early acquisition of SEL skills in the K-5 grade band, which we believe will prevent future chronic problems such as absenteeism. So the survey was aligned with the CASEL competencies, and I have presented in front of this group several times about the CASEL competencies, so I won't belabor this. But the 5 competencies are self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. Those competencies align with our district's health curriculum, as well as our district's goals around the portrait of a Shen graduate. The focus of the survey also was on growth mindset, and one of the great things about this survey is that the data that we received compared us to districts like us from across the country. So we were able to see among our students, staff, and parents how people perceived social-emotional learning compared to, again, districts similar to Shen nationwide. So I'm gonna try to fit this all on one slide here. It might be a little bit hard to read, but this is one of my favorite visualizations that we got from the data. So I'm just gonna explain this for a second. So you have on the left those CASEL competencies, and then on the bottom, and I'll move it up in a second so we can fully see the heat map, we have these different categories. So Shen students' perceptions in these areas is on the far left, followed by the national benchmark. Shen parent perceptions right here in the middle, followed by the national benchmark of all parents. And then Shen staff perceptions of SEL over here on the right, followed by the national benchmark. So something I noticed right away here is that our students rated themselves and their own feelings of their competency around SEL skills slightly lower than the national average. But staff rated student competency of their students much higher than the national average. And you know, we can't read too much into this, but I do think it's fascinating. I think our kids hold themselves to a really high standard. And our staff believes strongly that students are excelling in many of these areas, which I think is a great pattern. Our parents were roughly in line with the national average in terms of their, I can't click that. Can someone? Thank you. In terms of their perceptions of their own children's competency in those, again, 5 key aspects of social emotional learning. So generally speaking, the data showed that the district has significant strengths in the area of SEL skills and competency. So our students, staff, and parents indicated strengths in the area of inclusion and respect, in particular, high agreement that students feel comfortable working with individuals from different backgrounds. There was also strong agreement overall that there were strong relationships between students and their peers, between students and staff, and among staff in general, as well as strong agreement in the areas of social awareness and self-awareness, as well as growth mindset, and we'll talk a little bit more about growth mindset in a moment. And then lastly, in the area of self-management, so students hold themselves to very high expectations, which I don't think comes as a surprise. And then there were definitely some areas for growth that we took away from this as well. So one of the areas was that parents were noting that they believe in this, they believe in the concepts of SEL, but they don't always feel engaged in it, or they feel like maybe they're lacking resources to engage their students in this work outside of school. So one question we asked ourselves after reviewing the data was, how can we support parent engagement with SEL skills outside of school? Another area is that teachers were craving some additional professional development in how to incorporate social emotional learning into their instruction, as well as collaborative planning time to talk about this. As you'll see later on, elementary teachers felt much more comfortable engaging in the work of social emotional learning with students, and middle school and high school teachers felt relatively less comfortable. So that was one theme from this as well. And then lastly, how can we monitor student progress towards meeting our district's SEL goals? We have a curriculum at the K-5 level, and we analyze data from that curriculum triannually. But we could potentially, do better at analyzing the data at the middle school and high school level. So we noticed differences based on the age of the respondents. We didn't have elementary school students responding to this survey, but their parents and their teachers did. So those that responded in relation to elementary school students noted high levels of self-awareness and social awareness. The strongest scores for growth mindset. So our youngest students had the highest belief in their own potential, which was really exciting to hear. And then the highest teacher support for SEL and teacher comfort with SEL. At the middle school and high school level, there were relatively lower scores relating to self-awareness and relationship skills, which is not unexpected when we're talking about students getting older and dealing with more complicated relationship situations. We're really excited about our new 6th grade health curriculum, which we'll talk about later, which we think is really going to enhance our data around SEL because it's now going to be taught directly in 6th grade. And lastly, as it relates to high school, students the data showed that students felt a stronger sense of independence in their learning compared to students in elementary and middle school.
I have a question.
Yeah.
At the elementary level, because you had shared that only the secondary level were students able to take the survey. So how did you
Yes.
determine that at the elementary
So
level?
the parents and staff who filled the survey out answered questions about their perceptions of students' belief in certain areas. So that data is based solely on parents' responses and staff responses about students.
If you had taken that out for the secondary level, would it be similar?
That's a good question.
It's a great question. I would have to go back into my multi-thousand cell spreadsheet and do a little more digging on that. But the trend line was generally this. Back to the heat map. Staff perceptions of student skills were generally much higher than students' perception of their own skills.
Okay.
So probably is the answer to your question, if I had to guess.
Okay, and even with the areas of growth that you identified, do you see a similar trend at the national level? Because here this is comparing.
Sure.
With these.
So the areas of growth were specific to our results. So I didn't have access to the national data set when I was looking at the areas of growth. But I think generally speaking, again, it's not surprising, right, for parents to want more engagement with this, teachers to want more PD. But I don't have specific data to back that up.
Thank you.
Okay, so I wanted to just show some of the trends, and I apologize for the overlap here, it's a little bit hard to read. So generally speaking, again, elementary students, or the perception, of elementary staff and parents about elementary students was higher than middle school or high school students' perception of themselves, right? So I feel positive about my future. This question was asked slightly differently for elementary because it was, I feel positive about my child's future. I feel positive about my student's future. So obviously the rates were a little bit higher here. I can talk easily with others. My child can talk easily with others. My students can talk easily with others. Were the questions asked at the elementary level. So you see a little bit of a mix in results there, and then I understand how my words and actions affect other people. Again, the question was asked differently at the elementary level. So generally speaking, this just confirms the trend of staff and parents perceiving the skill set a little bit higher than students themselves, but still, scores above 4 are considered very strong. So our middle and high school students still doing fine in these areas. So as I've noted, responses were different based on who the respondent was, right? So students, again, perceived their own skills in these areas slightly lower than their parents or their teachers did. So, again, that could just be attributed to students having really high expectations for themselves, but that was true in the national data as well. Teachers and staff noted a particular strength in the area of growth mindset, not only their own belief in their students' ability to grow and learn, but they really emphasized students' belief in that themselves as well, even if students didn't see that. And then teachers and staff noted they strongly believe in and support SEL practices, even if they wanted additional professional development in that work. Yes?
It's sort of interesting in relation to the students at the college level where I work. We see sort of like a lack of resilience in a lot of ways. The thing is students do set high standards for themselves. There's a lot of perfectionism, but they don't always know that they lack the skills to recover from adverse experiences or resilience.
Yes.
It seems like they can kind of recognize that there's some work to do, and I think that's a really good thing at this level, moving forward toward college.
Yeah, so just anecdotally, I was looking at some of the responses that students and staff and parents were typing in, right? So the stuff that doesn't show up in charts. And it was really fascinating, some of the things that people wrote. And one trend I noted in particular is, again, students commented frequently on the perceived sort of generational differences in how SEL was perceived. Like comments like, well, my parents might think this about this, but me and my friends think this, right? So it's just really interesting. And again, there was some selection bias in here, right?
Sure.
Because people who had an interest in this filled out the survey, just with any survey, we have to account for that. And then, of course, people who have strong feelings about SEL on perhaps the negative side also filled out the survey. So those two things do tend to balance each other out. But I agree, resilience piece is interesting. And I think that that's become something that people are becoming more self-aware of and trying to correct for.
At a younger age.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Matt, I'm sorry to interrupt, just one more question. Is there any data that shows, like, I know this is our first time doing it, but, you know, nationally, this survey, you know, pre-COVID versus post-COVID?
Yeah, great question. So I don't recall if I presented on this to the board or not, but the CDC's Youth Risk Behavior Survey speaks to this quite a bit, mostly as it relates to mental health, not necessarily to social emotional skills and competencies, but definitely nationally, based on data that I've seen, COVID was certainly a dip because of the social isolation and various other things that were taking place then. But we are seeing the trend lines start to improve. So the CDC's most recent Youth Risk Behavior Survey, for example, noted a relative decline in the number of students who said they felt anxious or depressed in the last year. Still way too high, right? But a relative decline, which is heading in the right direction.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to highlight, just in closing, our SEL programming by level. And you know, at the elementary level, second step is our curriculum. Again, it's focused on the 5 CASEL competencies. There's 20 lessons per grade level from kindergarten through 5th grade. And this is taught in every classroom in every building across the district. So every student, by the time they leave 5th grade, is getting the same curriculum. And we're also, of course, incorporating restorative practices at the elementary level with a focus on relationship and culture building through community circles, and using it responsibly as well. At the middle school level, I mentioned earlier, we brought on 6th grade health for the first time in several years this year. It's been an amazing opportunity. Our teacher for that course is tracking the number of SEL and mental health lessons she's teaching with students, as well as student response data to that, because the course is paid for through a grant. And the state has asked for that data, and it's been really interesting to see students' SEL perceptions really change and improve over time as a result of that course. We think that's going to be a great bedrock for our SEL curriculum at the middle school, leading into 8th grade health, which of course all students take as well. Students also take health again in 10th grade, and while we don't have a standardized SEL curriculum at the middle school or high school level, SEL is being incorporated, these skills and competencies are being incorporated into instruction. So in all of our curriculum maps, there's a spot for teachers to talk about and reflect on how they're incorporating SEL into instruction. So it really is something that has become embedded. And of course, if you walk into a classroom, you're not going to see SEL written on every board, right? But you're going to see activities that students are engaged in that enable them to practice these skills, right? The relationship building, the goal setting, the responsible decision making, self-awareness, social awareness, so on and so forth. So where do we go from here? First, we want to celebrate our successes. We have a very strong staff perception of student SEL skills. So that speaks volumes about the work our staff is doing, but also their belief in our kids. Our students strongly believe in their ability to grow and change, that their brains are malleable, which we believe is true through research on growth mindset. And then we're incorporating aligned curriculum, both at the elementary level and the middle school level. And yes, we've identified areas for growth, and we're going to work to set goals for future growth in these areas. In particular, continuing to look at SEL as it relates to middle school and high school, identifying ways to enhance professional development and collaborative planning time for staff around SEL, which we do a lot of in the summer, and then exploring increased parent communication and engagement with district SEL initiatives as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's right.
Good stuff.
Do you want me to, do you want the mouse?
I can do this right now. Maybe like that was that case Jenny wants to use.
Am I
Yeah, it
driving,
doesn't matter.
am I driving over here? Okay. All
right, good evening, everyone. So we are doing our annual board report. Before we jump into that and what kind of we have on the screen, I just wanted to take a few minutes to introduce some of our team members that are now sitting down behind me. And I would actually like them to introduce themselves and just kind of let you know how long they've been with the district and kind of their main areas of expertise. We have 2 individuals that were not able to be here tonight. But here is our team right here. So I will let them introduce ourselves. Bottom, middle, and right is Devin O'Neill and Sue Toko. Both of them were unable to be here tonight, but I'll let our other colleagues stand up and just introduce themselves. And then I'll kind of quickly go down through our slides. And I just want to emphasize that I think the value of having them be able to introduce themselves is really that our team is what it allows us to get accomplished everything that we do. And I think we've been able to really put in some great things over the last almost 2 years. And we have a lot of great plans going forward too. So they work really hard, they put in a lot of hours, and they don't always give themselves the credit for everything they do, but they do work really hard, and we have a great team. So with that being said, if you guys want to come up and just quickly introduce yourselves and how long you've been here and what you do.
I'm Jen Cornell. I'm the Assistant Director of HR, and I've been here for about 11 years, and prior to that came from a private foundation, so I have over 25 years of HR experience. Working in education was new for me, new experience, but we've been working hard. We have a great team, and we've been working hard to improve processes to expand the employee experience for our staff here at Shen.
I am Stacy Shinsky. I have been with Shen for about 18 years, with Human Resources for about 6. I think I'm going on 6 years now. Prior to being with Shen, I was in medical practice management, but then left that to kind of become a stay-at-home mom for a little bit, and then started back up to work at Shen, which worked out well for everyone. So yeah, and I've loved being at Human Resources. Because as Jen said, we do have a great team. I think we've been doing a lot of great things, especially in the last couple of years. And I've worked with a lot of you over the last little bit. So yeah, a lot. So
Yes.
yeah, that's my story.
And some more to come.
Yeah.
Very soon.
My name is Angie Scripter. I have been with Shen for 3 years, all in HR. Before that, I was in HR in healthcare. That was about 10 years. So I really appreciate everybody here at Shen. The education field was also very different for myself, but I think I finally got the hang of it, and I just love being part of the team. Yeah. Thank you all.
And we love standing up in front of people.
Thank you.
Yes. We're called background.
Yeah.
Right.
That's why.
So thank you for that, I appreciate it, and I'm actually just gonna zoom this out a little bit so we can see. So, and again, I'll quickly go down through this, and if there's any questions or if you ever want expansion on anything, just let me know, we can do that as well. But really looking at kind of how our internal goals kind of tie in with overall strategic goals for the district as well. I think focusing on 3 main areas. We have a lot of different things we're focusing on, but what we did in the beginning of the year is kind of we tried to narrow down those buckets. And so that it doesn't feel as overwhelming, and trying to fit them in and how do things tie together and the different initiatives that we're working on. So really when we're looking at it, for us it's really recruitment, retention, and process improvement. And there's a lot of different things that go into all those categories. So just to touch on recruitment in general, and I won't read down through all of that, but really basically focusing on proactive recruitment. So we no longer can just sit by and just say we're posting a job and we're gonna wait and see how many candidates we get. We really need to be proactive, and we need to be out there. We need to be holding events ourselves. We need to be attending events. We need to tell the story of Shen as to why people want to come here and be part of this great organization and work for us here. We also want people just continuing looking, really tapping into social media, different things like that we know a lot of organizations are doing, but just to make sure that we are staying up to speed with all of that as well. A couple of things just to mention, we have started new this year, walk-in Wednesdays. So we have our flyers about where we basically are helping people apply for jobs here at Shen. Very impressive. Our first walk-in Wednesday, we had 55 attendees, which was really, it was really amazing. There was such a great vibe and a lot of energy going on it was right in the district office in the main foyer area. So we had 55 attendees. The staff here all ran everything, talking with everyone, just sharing all the wonderful reasons why you'd want to come work at Shen and letting them know about potential opportunities that they may not know even exist. We held our second one in February and that had 42 attendees. And again, I think just to point out, I mean, some job fairs you can go to, you're not really even getting that many people through the door. But so for us to have that many people that are interested in learning more about Shen, it really was great. And Angie does a lot with our substitutes, did a great job with trying to say to people, you know, there may not be a position right now, but would you be interested in being a sub and getting those applications in? So doing a lot of that type of networking work. Job fairs, just making sure, again, getting out there and making sure we're really trying to create that pipeline of staffing as needs arise. Tapping into social media, our PTAs are out in the community. We know that they're available. So getting a walk-in Wednesday, went out through our PTAs. We had it distributed through our community groups that use our facilities and just asking people just to get the word out in general. It doesn't need to be complicated. So I think this is, you know, when we really are looking at that, the things that we're trying to do, there may be there may seem like there appears to be a lot of work that needs to go into it, but we don't need to overcomplicate our processes. And we need to kind of bring it down to the baseline and start to build from there. So that's really what we've been doing. A lot of it too, to try to figure out how we're gonna have the time to do this, is looking at automation. So that's something that you'll see, and it really part of our process improvement and recruitment is really automation. And how do we start to create forms that are easy? So you'll see our request for posting, our recommendation for hire, a reference check. All these types of forms used to be done more in Google Docs, where you would be filling out all the individual forms or going through everything. Stacy has really taken the lead on a lot of this and being able to create these documents within our HR system. So basically you click a button and they go off to the right people, they're notified, and much better tracking, much better process improvement. A lot of these are in pilot form right now, and we're looking to roll it out to the rest of the organization as well. Same thing with substitutes. That's always an area of need. So focusing on how we can be efficient on getting subs on board, how do we make sure that people know what the process is. This year so far, we've hired 95 instructional substitutes and 64 support staff substitutes. So again, a lot of work goes into that. Angie meets with each one of them individually to go through the paperwork and the process, and then the team goes about hiring them and getting them on board. Again, process improvement, another one of our buckets, really looking at all these areas of standardizing, streamlining. I think sometimes this is an area that can be overlooked when we're really busy and everyone's trying to go and keep going. And this is something that we've really taken a step back on a lot of different initiatives in our department to say, okay, what is the current process? And really looking to apply some lean principles about where is there waste, where can we look to reduce, where's there duplication, where are the pinch points, those kind of things as well. And here's just a couple of our examples. Again, I won't read down through all of them, but really these are some of the main areas of touch points every day within the HR department that really looking to standardize, streamline, and digitize. We are working on a process. We are trying to get all of our employee records digital as well. So we have any new hire that comes on board, it has a digital, the file is electronic. That's again part of the whole process improvement too. When they apply online, that actually starts kind of when we hire them, goes right in starting to create that employee file and build from there. Just as important as recruitment is retention. So we don't want to keep circling around and recruiting because we can't retain people. So just a couple of statistics here, but we've really been focusing on about how do we retain people? How do we look to make sure that when they start with Shen that they're welcome, they feel like they're part of the team? So that's a lot of different things, making sure we have a clear onboarding process that's streamlined. So we've been working on that. We have, are looking at, we are in the process of revamping some of our new hire orientation, and making sure that there are different things such as EDI that are covered there that, have not been a main area of focus in the past, but just making sure that, we're making sure that when people are coming through the door, they're not just hearing about the policies and procedures, they also are hearing about the culture that we have at Shen, we want to continue at Shen, and how they can be part of that and welcome as soon as they start in with us. We are also rolling out, again, automated 30-day check-ins for new hires. We'd love to be able to do that in person with the individuals and make it a personal touch, but that's just something we can't do right now. So instead, we're looking to create this automated process where it kind of sets the reminder of like, have you done these items yet? You're 30 days in, maybe someone forgot to let you know that you need your parking pass all the time. You know, different things like that as just a reminder. It's overwhelming as a new hire, but just to help people as they transition here at Shen. Trying to hold as many informational sessions as we can, trying to get information back from people. We've done some different listening tours. This year too was new, is we had the HR staff sign up to visit all of the buildings and different operational areas, just to do a check-in, just to pop over and say, hi, you know, I'm so-and-so and we're here to help. What kind of questions do you have, those kind of things. What we did get out of that was a lot of people had questions about retirement. What we really found more was more questions almost about retirement planning, which we can't necessarily offer the resources for that, but we can guide them in the right direction, and that this isn't necessarily a benefit you should be looking at through Shen, but this outside of Shen, you may want to look for retirement planning. These are the kind of questions that people have. It also gave us an opportunity to look at revamping our intranet for the retirement page and making things clearer so people understood this is where I need to go. And these are the kind of things that I think when you start to go out and you're listening and you're having conversations, you start to find, sometimes it's these small things. I always joke, and I have said this many times before, when I've done some of these types of listening toward things, it's the people that are like, well, I can't get staples from my stapler. And it's like, what do you mean you can't get staples for your team? No, it's those little things that we want to focus on as well. That is, to that individual is an issue in their daily routine and trying to get work done. So how can we help with those types of things? And overall, trying to impact the retention of employees. Again, just looking at cross-training, we've done a lot of, Jen has done a lot of data analysis for us. We're really starting to dig into our data and really saying what do the trends show us. And that's something that we will look to bring in the future to the board as well. We've started exit interviews. We're doing some desk audits and position analysis just to make sure we have the right positions for the people and what work they're doing. And overall, it's just a little touch on of everything we do. We really do have a lot going on. We have a lot of different balls in the air all the time. And again, I can't thank the team enough because they really do keep everything going. They don't roll their eyes too much at me when I'm like, hey, what about if we think about doing this? But I think we all do that as well. That we're all constantly trying to think of new and different ways to try to do things. And we really just have an overall great team that really works well together. So, any questions?
Just one quick one.
Yeah.
So with the walk-in Wednesdays and the job fairs, has it helped with finding bus drivers?
Yes.
Oh, it has?
Yes,
Okay.
absolutely. Yeah, and also I will add in addition to that, Belinda, who's our Director of Transportation, has been absolutely wonderful in trying to, she came over, I think the first walk-in Wednesday.
They were here,
Yeah, they were here.
They drove their truck, their
Yeah,
van,
their
that's all,
van.
that van, they parked in the parking lot, so
Yes.
it's great.
So smart.
They have their QR code on the side of it. I mean, they have been really wonderful in joining in with us to try to help recruit. And yes, yes we have.
That's fantastic,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. And that's something too that we've said to people, you know, again, we may not have a position right now. Have you ever considered being a bus driver? You know, what the schedule might look like. It's things that people may not have thought about because they're like, oh, I don't have my CDL. Well, let us train you. Let us help you get that, you know. So different things like that we're trying to do at the Walk-in Wednesday and the job fairs. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's a really
Great.
good job.
Thank you.
Can you, Jenny, can you just put this in consensus?
Okay.
We have another walking Wednesday tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Oh, I'm so excited.
Spread the word, spread the word.
Yes, sorry.
Definitely.
Yeah, what time?
10:30 to 1:30. We'll be there.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
So, thank you very much, Jenny and team. So I won't necessarily go through the details of this because not a lot of details have changed. I just cleaned up some of the slides between scenario 1, scenario 2. And I'm just looking at the audience, I don't think that we have a lot of questions from the audience. So I won't necessarily go through much, just want to just go towards the end actually, just to the board, just so you have appreciation of.
Can I clarify, is this a public comment period?
Yeah, if people had comments, questions related to this, they
Okay, I
could.
just wanted to put that out there on the
Yes,
record.
yes.
This is a public comment period for the budget.
For the budget,
Yes,
for the budget.
if anyone would like to comment from the public.
And so, again, just wanted to just remind the board that going into this year's budget, we made some, one, we typically do our tight combing through the budget process to making sure that that's what's there, the assumptions, some of the assumptions we spoke about in other venues in terms of some of the things that drive some of the big costs, certain costs within the budget. So we look at some of those cost trends and try to know, we know what our ceilings are, right? So anything below the ceiling is an opportunity. So we look at those kind of things. And we made some adjustments to the reserves. And I mentioned to the board last time that we were looking at the differential between what we contribute, but quite frankly, it becomes 6 and 1/2 does another. Because the reserves are very flexible in terms of when we use them, how we use them. So the distribution will, quite frankly, which will impact when we get certain timing of certain bills. And so for this purposes, adoption of the budget, it's not like we're fixed that you said you're going to use this and you have to use this. The reserve is an infusion into the budget based upon what we need, revenue needs at that time. And so there's a potential, as you know, this past year, for example, we saw a significant increase in interest income. So if we see a significant increase in interest income, that's less reliance on reserve. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So because those two reserves in particular are the most flexible reserves we have versus a capital project reserve, you absolutely have to have voters say use up to X. So that's why it provides some flexibility. That's why last time I mentioned to the board that either this cutting or this flexibility piece, that as the budget unfolds, you have some flexibility on the revenue side. Similarly, if we see an infusion of state aid after the state budget process, it gives us, again, flexibility to use less reserve and or make some modification even further to the tax levy, depending on where the state budget falls in relationship to when we have to formally adopt the budget. Does that make sense? So not a lot of changes. Spent a lot of time with Kathy trying to comb through this stuff to make sure that, again, that what we have is pretty clean. I've spent some time with Dr. Wilson-Turner, again, looking at some of the requests that people have and knowing that we're hitting the big rocks, the primary needs as we move forward. However, we have to be true to some of the assumptions that we build in the budget. We absolutely have to be true to some of those assumptions that we build in the budget as different things materialize. So I'm just going to pause there. If there are questions you have, I'd be more than happy to again, go into as much detail, as little detail as you would like. There are links to some of the background information on some of those type things. And just one thing I just want to just share briefly, and I didn't link it to this, but I can certainly provide it in Friday Bulletin. Last time, Mrs. Hoffman was asking about debt service. And this schedule, you see here, and I have the pen right here. So this is not, this is year when we know with, that this included $55 million project as well. So once the project borrowing comes, this amount will start smoothing out because we have to see where we borrow and how we borrow in terms of the actual debt piece of it. So this was just based on rough pieces. If we borrow X and don't look at interest rates, because remember, it's an assumption of what were the interest rates 3 years ago versus as we start to actually borrow money to address that project. But the big piece I want to show here is we knew that typically when you bring a project, you see an uptick, and then you start seeing the debt start retiring, and you see debt retirement as we move forward. So for instance,
This is 5 Maxwell that we're
no, this is
seeing
not
the
all of that.
impact
This is all of our debt. This is all of our
Right,
debt combined.
but the uptick is because 5
Yes,
Maxwell's coming
yeah,
online now.
exactly. So this all our debt, bus debt and capital project debt, it's our mortgage payment, so to speak. The piece that I wanted to really point out, that when you start thinking about when we borrow, so for instance, the proposed referendum for 25, that won't necessarily start materializing probably till 28, and so you'll start seeing the debt service start to decline. And so that's a piece that we were trying to time between when we bring on new debt, when there's a decline, so that the uptick isn't so significant, and or it's not significant for a long time. Does that make sense? And so we'll smooth, this will smooth out quite a bit, once we start, again, actually borrowing money, and seeing what the interest rates are. That the good thing that we have as a system, because, of, quite frankly, you're having strong fiscal health and otherwise, we borrow money pretty relatively cheap, because we have a high bond rating. We have the highest bond rating that schools can have, which makes sense, it's your credit score, right? So people with high credit score can borrow money cheaper than people with low credit score. So those are just good things for the board to know, and a big part of that is having reserves, to be able to deal with uncertainties and not having to have cuts and all those kind of things all over the place where you're from a rating of your business, it seems like there are too many uncertainties, or every year the comptroller puts out his fiscal health report, and we always rate no designation because there's nothing to indication that the fiscal health of the school district has any potential pieces. So I share those kind of things with you, but this just gives you a good flavor of when we start thinking about adding debt to the sequence. We want to stay within a area that is manageable from a budget perspective. I hope that makes some sense.
Yeah, and so it does reflect this proposition for the capital projects.
Yeah, so
As well as the
for the current
this
one,
right here.
for the current 55, yes. We haven't put the 85 in it
Okay,
yet. So, but
okay.
again, the 85, when you think about it, 85 is going to be an out years. It's going to be an out year, so it's going to be 29, 30.
Well, actually, that's what I was wondering.
Yeah.
It's not going to be in the next couple of
No,
years.
no. Because, I mean, when you think about between capital project being approved, design, construction, minimally, you're right about 3 years out.
Well, a lot of it was paving.
Yeah, but still got to go through
roads.
the same SED
Oh,
design
it
stuff.
does,
Oh, yeah.
it does, okay.
Yeah, so I want to show this because I think it's an important graphic for the board to see and understand a simple concept. We try to avoid bringing on debt when we're seeing an increase in debt service and trying to bring on debt when we see a decrease in debt service. When a new debt come in, it flats out more than spiking.
Okay, thank you.
So otherwise, at this point, we're watching the proverbial tea leaves from the state to see where the state is going with some of their budget approvals. I was in a meeting the other day, and you know, I honestly, it's not a disparaging comment to the state, but I think I count on one hand, on a couple fingers, how many on-time state budgets we've had. And again, there's some anticipation that the state budget will be somewhat late. You know, some people say maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks. The piece that we have to watch very carefully is our budget adoption is looking at the 8th of April, but we have some flexibility in that timeline in the sense of that if we get a huge infusion of funds and between our February 8th, I just want to look at the board meeting, I'm sorry, April 8th, and then the next one is a special, then the next one is the special meeting for the BOCES on the 23rd. So if something happens that's dramatic, and we have to have an addendum to that approval, the 23rd puts us right at the edge of when we have to get but we have to do a lot of prep work to basically say what's the final number going into all the documents that go out. So that puts us right at the edge, and so that's the reason why, again, we hope that we hear some news between now and prior to April 8th meeting, so we can make whatever adjustments and whatever recommendations before the board has to finally adopt the language at that meeting. I mean, the formal language at that meeting. Tonight, the board is asked to adopt what we call template language. And that's what's on there. So we do the template language, so we do the 45-day notice, and then actual formal adoption of the budget period number will be at that meeting. So again, thank you for the indulgence tonight. I know there was a lot of stuff, but I think this is a reflection in many ways of who we are as a system, because you saw it all. From the adults to the kids, to how we support all those things for the adults and the kids.
And
fantastic.
with the EV, I see that it's here as just as a substitute if the funding comes.
With a contingency.
If it comes through. Does that mean, because when Belinda was here, she was talking about that there, I'm forgetting what it was exactly. There was something that you did not know yet as far as bringing the electricity in.
Yeah, so I mean, the major contingency for this, because we're talking about purchasing of a bus, is the offset of the cost. But there are still construction contingencies in terms of so say, just hypothetical, say if we get word that we get the cost offset and we are able, financially able, and this resolution passes, and we have the financial capacity to purchase the bus. The next question is, when do we actually start doing that, based upon the construction piece of it? So I think having the authorization to do it is the first thing that you want, and then we work to how we best get that done. Does that make some sense?
Oh, right, I thought it was specific to the infrastructure.
Yeah, it was, that's what I'm saying, so, but you can't say, oh, the
Okay,
infrastructure's
we have
done,
to
but
get
we
this-
never had authorization to purchase. So we'd rather have the authorization and able to use it at some point in the future than not having the authorization and then having capacity. I mean, does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So yeah, so that's why, and that contingency is because we're only talking about bus purchase. That's why that EV language is only related to the actual purchase of the vehicle.
Can you pull that up on my phone?
Sure. So yeah, in fact, I'll just turn it back over to you.
Yeah, I was just looking at it.
No, it's good, I mean, as long as we're moving into the action items, let's pull up what it is we're voting on.
So, yeah, so, you just want me to talk to you real quick?
Yeah, it's fine.
So again, this is what we call our annual meeting language notice, and so by law, we have to publish it in a newspaper 4 times, 45 day. So there's a sequence for when those publications take place. And so the first thing is the Board of Education. We have to talk about who the incumbents and the term of those incumbents. And so that's listed. But then we have what we call boilerplate language related to the proposition. First proposition is the budget. And so right now, so the proposition will not run the budget language based upon what we have now, knowing that, again, if February 8th comes, we can make that final resolution, adopt the budget, and change that number. But again, you have to put some things out there. Some places put out their question marks, but it kind of throws people off because they think it was an error. And so we rather put this out there than have the board come back and solidify this is the formal language. The bus resolution that we spoke about, as Naomi pointed out, was the ones that Belinda mentioned. Typical combustion engine buses are at the top of it. And then this language that contingent on receiving the NICEP funds. We'll look to substitute 2 of the larger buses for those, again, with a cost not to exceed 3.4 with that offset.
We should add the word exceed on there, not to.
Oh, yeah, right here, yeah, good catch, Vanessa, remember, right here, right, not to exceed, right here. Yeah, nice catch, because we have, not to be able to exceed up for, nope, you must read contracts for a living. So nice catch, and then the establishment of the reserve, which is something that last time we did was 2016, I think it was. And this is, again, an opportunity for, over time, the district to accumulate funds to help offset future capital projects, and which is, again, it's, you know, it's that cushion between how you try to minimize, or should I say, smooth out the impact, particularly the same thing, just like that debt service. So if infusing some funds and not borrowing some things help the debt service, that's an opportunity to have a lower debt exposure. Does that make sense? The capital project referendum itself, language is pretty broad in terms of building the facility, site, athletics. You kind of put everything in it because you don't want to have a scope so narrow, because SCD is going to come back to the scope and say, well, yeah, a very specific scope. So we try to, quite frankly, make the scope pretty broad in terms of the potential of what we may do with the project, and then recognizing that a part of this is that we hope to use some of the reserve to offset some of those things as well. So in right now, I think the balance is this year, I think about $5 million in that. But by the time we get to this project, hopefully we'll have more than that in the reserve to offset that piece of it. So that's the logic behind that piece as well. So this is the language that we'll start posting and putting out there. And this language is also important because that's when we start the process for getting absentee ballots together. There's a timeline for all those things. We have to have certain things by certain things. Military ballots has to go out at a certain time. Ballot to disabled voters have to go out to a certain time, and all those kind of things. So those processes will start running pretty fast here in the end of March, beginning of April as well. So, and then the budget vote is obviously on May 20th. So that's where we are at this point. And again, if there are questions, I'd be more than happy to address those questions.
When are the signatures due?
Say it again?
The signatures for the,
Petitions due
April 21st.
the 21st, Monday the 21st, board petition signatures. Ironically, it's funny, I just opened this first thing. So, that's where we are, and we'll go from that. Again, the board will have an opportunity to act again on the overall budget on the April 18th.
Okay, not seeing any questions, I will entertain a motion to approve this language. Naomi is first, Carla is second, all in favor? 6 in favor, the motion passes. Thank you, guys. Next up, we have the approval of SUSA Memorandum of Agreements. I believe we discussed this at the last meeting. It
Yeah,
doesn't
so
really-
this has been out, we've actually had this agreement for a while, but it got caught up in some lawyer lingos. Because the first time they got an attorney and it took a little bit longer than everyone anticipated, so,
Okay.
yeah.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns for Jenny on this? Okay, can I have a motion to approve? Gusta is first and Mary Collin is second. All in favor? 6 in favor, motion passes to approve the SUSA MOA. Thank you. And now we have staffing recommendations.
So you have a short staffing agenda in front of you tonight. Would like to just point out that we do have Kathleen Strangis with us here tonight, who will be accepting, or is being appointed for the summer program and the summer literacy program coordinator for the district.
It's really exciting. Thank you. Thank you for stepping up on that. Can I have a motion to approve the staffing agenda? Tom is first, Naomi is second. Questions? All in favor? 6 in favor. Motion passes. Thank you, Jen. Okay, next up, it says good of the order, but I'm going to allow our very patient students, if they have any announcements, so please go ahead.
okay.
Hold the microphone.
I know. It should
So-
happen every day.
Currently, the PTSA is working on a presentation in collaboration with the Senate to talk to parents and students about like the safety of online and how to like handle social media and its independence. And also the class of 2026 is fundraising for kidney cancer awareness because one of their like fellow classmates is battling it currently. So they're fundraising outside the cafeteria.
Thank you. Yeah, I had heard that the PTSA received a grant
Yes.
for that, yeah, for the online training and how to stay safe. That's great that you guys are working together. Heidi, Senate, do you have anything for us?
Hi. So as you all know, currently we're working on the 75th anniversary, so that's our big thing. So Senate is planning to have a booth, either a booth or a classroom, we're not really sure yet, but we're gonna be working on, as we said last time, like the yearbook photos, stuff like that. Also the mascot, we're planning on looking through and seeing some of the teachers, so like comparing photos from then and now. And then we have a lot of clubs too, like big clubs. There's, I think we're gonna have robotics like in the cafeteria, of course, really important. And then we have like the musical production, and they have like the playbills of every year, so that's gonna be fun.
That's excellent. I love that.
The event will be held on May 17th and 16th, and we're currently planning on having a basketball game during school on that Friday. And it's not confirmed yet. Saratoga does not want to play us, but
I can't imagine why.
yeah. So we're looking for a school, but all the Senate has been working really hard. People have been coming in every morning for the yearbook pictures, and we're just progressing every day, little by little.
Great. Thank you so much for everyone's hard work on that. That was fantastic. I know the basketball game that happened during the school day was so popular. Yeah, extremely well received. I think it's wonderful to have the students cheer on other students like that. Anyone else for the good of the order? I will say I heard the middle school musical was fantastic, so I'm so excited that we have that now, and I'm looking forward to having it on a yearly basis. Very, very exciting. Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, I will entertain a motion to go back into executive session to discuss an investigation. Naomi is first, Carla is second, all in favor. 6 in favor, motion passes. Thank you. The rest of you are excused. You're welcome. Turn off your mics.